one is speaking in public. Isn't that interesting? It's even more interesting that the fear of dying doesn't even come on that list until number 3 or 6 on the list. I think the fear of dying while speaking in public must be number 2. I get pretty nervous before I speak. In fact, on the way in the building here, I took a little detour to the restroom to freshen up, and a voice behind me said, "Miss Jordan, do you usually get nervous before you speak?" And I said, "Well, no, not really. Why do you ask?" And the voice said, "Well, I don't know. I was just wondering what you were doing in the men's room." So the solution to fear is the triple P's. Remember the triple P's. Plan, prepare, or planning, preparation, and prayer. I always remember those 3 P's. Oh, I see some hands going up, but only a little bit. Some are just not raising their hands. You're probably thinking, do I or don't I? I don't know if I should admit to her. I hardly know her. But we all do. We all talk to ourselves all the time. In fact, there is a school of thought out there that surrounds that whole notion. It's called the rational emotive cognitive behavioral approach. The questions that you ask yourself are really key, not just your self-talk, but the questions you ask yourself. That is what really the 3 books are based on. I introduced this notion back when I was a therapist and I had a therapy group of members. I asked them this very deep, profound, philosophical question: why are we here? And one of the group members unexpectedly answered, because we're not all there. Wasn't exactly what I was looking for. Okay, we're going to turn to an exercise demonstrating the power of self-talk and asking yourself the right questions. Again, I would have had the question up here so it would be visible to you, so I apologize. But this is the question. I will rephrase it twice. What I want you to do is just maybe look to your left or to your right with a partner, choose a partner, and ask each other this question. Okay? The question is, what are your stressors? When, where, and with whom are you stressed out the most? What really drives you crazy? Makes you uptight, anxious, or angry? Okay, so what I'd like you to do is turn to a partner and ask her, okay? The second question is, what are your stress relievers? Now we're thinking of the opposite. When, where, and with whom do you feel calm, relaxed, serene, happy, comfortable, all those good, warm, fluffy feelings? We'll do the same thing again. Take about a minute and talk to your partner. What are your stress relievers? When I first married, these were my 3 pleasures: working out or exercising, dancing, and making love to my husband. Now those were my 3 things. That was it. Now, what would happen if that was all that I had for the rest of my life? You know, sooner or later the equipment's going to break down. No, I mean the exercise equipment. But we need to have those joys and pleasures, and we need to keep track of them because they will counter all the negatives in your life, and you can bring them to you related to stress. Another example is toilet paper. How many of you hang the roll so that it unrolls behind the roll? And how many of you do it the right way? All right, okay. No, really, I'm just kidding. There is no right way. But we do it the same time each time, don't we? We do it the same way, I should say, each time. And that is because that is what makes us most comfortable. That's normal. That's normal. Now, on the other hand, if you were sitting in your bathroom, or worse yet, in someone else's bathroom, and you're like, something's wrong here. I'm really uncomfortable. Oh, I can't stand this. Oh, it's the toilet paper. So you switch it, and instantly you feel better. Now, that's not so normal. You might want to check into getting medication for that. But change can show you other examples. My husband used to be an elected official on the United Nations Business Committee. So he traveled a lot. And with that change, him having to travel a lot and working a lot of hours, there was an additional change in our lives at that time period. My oldest son, Nathan, was 3, and my youngest son, Zach, was born. Now, until that point, Nathan was an only child, and he had us all to himself. He had more of Dad, and Dad didn't travel so much. So there was a lot of adjustment in Nathan's life. And more specifically, he regressed. You know how kids regress when they're faced with a lot of change? Kind of like us when we're faced with global competition, downsizing, corporate downsizing and re-engineering and all the things we're faced with today. Sometimes we regress. Well, Nathan regressed. He started slipping into our room in the middle of the night and sleeping on our floor. So one day my husband had this really long trip planned. It was a 9-day tour of Europe. Boy, that was hard. Being a mom of 2, at this time it was just 2 kids, and working full time. So I really desperately needed my sleep. So we had a long talk with Nathan before he went on this trip. He said, Nathan, you've got to be the man of the house now. You've got to be really good. You've got to make sure that Mom gets her sleep. Stop sneaking in the room in the middle of the night. And Nathan said, okay, Dad. So the day that Gary came back from his trip, it was an incredible scene in the airport. Kind of a Norman Rockwell scene in the airport. There I was with Zach in my arms, and Nathan proudly yelling down the corridor, hey, Dad, good news! No one slept with Mom while you were gone! So although he had a lot of change in his life, Nathan did survive. But how do you explain that to all those people? That it wasn't what they were